Whether it's manually or automatically operated, whether it's a digital or an analog design, or we are looking at a vintage or a new invention, any kind of game requires time, commitment, and intelligence, according to some gaming experts. These experts have called for the inclusion of relevant games to school activities to make teaching and learning processes much easier. I am Mr. Adolf, the teacher. This is your 4 Walls on TV 360 Nigeria, and I have my green board to show you the guidelines. On the green board, the classwork has another almost a book review before the preface to the topic titled Game of Character. After that, a special game developer will be joining us to discuss his new invention and where games are taking this generation to. Then we do the grading and assignment. I've also got the latest news in the education sector. Let's hit it. The Minister of Education, Adamu again, has issued December 2019 deadline for teachers who fail to register and get licensed with Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria. The minister, who was represented by the TRCN registrar, Professor Olusegun Ajiboye, issued the warning on Thursday. He said, with the position of the National Council of Education, the TRCN has been mandated that by December 2019, anyone who has not registered will not be licensed anymore to practice in the classroom. And this position will be enforced to letter. Now, teachers still have the opportunity to take 2 professional qualifying examinations in May and October 2019 for them to get their registration and qualification. That is the latest happening in the education sector. So we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be doing what's almost a book review. Don't go, we'll be right back. Welcome back. So, have you heard of James Patterson before? Like ever before, this man is one of the best prolific writers in the world. The magnificent author of London Bridge. Go and pick up the London Bridge book and experience the highest level of pressure. 124 pages with terrifying situation. The book was released in 2014. Voluminous, sort of, but very, very exciting, and it's a page turner. So let's quickly go to the topic of the show. Game of Character. A huge shout out first and foremost to all the game inventors in the world. There are all sorts of games in the world today, and of course, games have been part of human civilization. Every race, every language, every people has certain game developed within their culture and society. As the human race generally progresses, so are the methods and purposes of the game industries. Beyond that, many game concepts and designs have been condemned, whereas there are some games that are accepted as positive and ideal for human community. From the base of educational 4 walls, we need to look at all the calls for relevant games to be included in teaching and learning processes. So I tracked down the latest game developer whose invention is invading schools right now. That is Lanre Ojo. Welcome to the show.
Hi, welcome.
I call you game developer. I don't know what else to call you because when I saw what you designed, it's fabulous. Tell me, how did you come about that?
Okay, so basically what we did was we looked at the society at large. I'm someone that is very passionate about Nigeria. So what we did was to look at what are the things that can build character, of the Nigerian people. Let's make it into a game, make it fun for the next generation, basically. So that's what we did. We went for societal vices and values, that affect us in our everyday life, and then we combine it into a game for the next generation to be able to adapt, and inculcate in their growing up basically.
You're talking as if it's so easy to bring in character development into some sort of game, because number one, I could remember as a child, I was stopped from playing certain games. I was told that they bring distraction, academic distraction, and even teach some ill manners and sort of. How would game at this period begin to change one's character?
Okay, so first and foremost, that was an erroneous opinion. Yes, there are different types of games. Some might affect you negatively.
What kind of game would affect me negatively?
So maybe a lot of games that showcase violence. So as a kid, maybe that might not be the right time to be inputting such messages, But I, for instance, now I learned most about what I know about driving from playing a driving game,
Wow.
a video game. I've been used to playing games from when I was very little. Monopoly taught me a lot about businesses. It wasn't until recently I even discovered, when we went into this game development for Values and Vices, that I discovered that Snakes and Ladders was not just a game, in an ordinary game. It was actually a game that teaches that life is not a straight line; it's full of ups and downs.
Wow.
So that's what Snakes and Ladders is about.
Nobody ever said this.
And then you have Ayo. Ayo is a counting game.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you, even Ludo is also a counting game that has some strategy. Chess is very good for stimulating the brain. So all sorts of games actually give you subtle stimulations that aid your education eventually. So what we did was, let's go for a character building game, because I had a quote of recent from Theodore Roosevelt. He said, "If you educate in mind, and not in morals, you're educating a menace to society." If we look all around us, we're already seeing the active effects of the social moral decline. We have increased drug abuse, suicide cases. We have so there's so many of these things around us: kidnapping, insecurity on the rise, selfishness. So all these things are things that need to be curbed. And if we look at our population statistics, half of our population is age 0 to 14. Oh, yes. That's about over 100 million people. So if we miss it now, especially now that we no longer have moral education in our school curriculum, so there are so many things that are missing from building the young mind. So what we did was, let's try and arrest, at least to the best of our own ability, let's create something that can help us put us back on track as a people. If we can correct 100 million kids, these people in the next 10 years, 10, 20 years will be the strongest force in our society.
And you have the faith that your game, your invention is going to do all of this that you're talking about.
Yeah, so now basically the Values and Vices game has 10 ladders, 10 snakes, and has 10 values cards and 20 values cards, 25 vices cards.
Okay.
So, and these are different lessons on everyday life. So it teaches them without an iota of doubt that this is right, this is wrong. These are the consequences for doing this.
What are the things that I could probably see on that board?
Okay, so for instance, on our Values and Vices board, okay, we have snakes that depict cultism. We have snakes that depict drug abuse, rape. We have internet fraud, that's Yahoo, lying. Those are vices. And then we have values like love, hard work.
They're represented by what?
Ladders. So,
okay.
So the ladders take you up, the snakes bring you down. So the snakes represent some of the vices. The ladders represent values. So that these are, if I do this, if I'm honest, for instance, there's honesty as a values card. We have hard work as values. We have respect for others, as value, as a ladder. Now, if I land on the ladder, respect for others, it takes me up. So I know that if I show respect, I go far in life. If I'm honest, I go far in life. If I take, if I show love, I go far in life. Teamwork, So those are some of the things that take you up. Patriotism too, yes, was touched on. Now, the ones that bring you down are things like intolerance, as I said earlier, rape, internet fraud, Anytime you land on those squares, you're brought down. So automatically that there's something negative attached to these things. So it makes you, when you encounter this as a kid, when you encounter this, you know that this is wrong. You do not want to take part, exactly, get involved in it. And for the good ones, if you say, oh, this is good, I can go ahead and indulge in this.
All right, before we go on short break, I'd like to know what age is necessary for this game.
Okay, so Values and Vices is designed for age 6 and above. So initially, well, okay, 6.
Why 6? Why did you choose 6?
Okay, so because that's when the lessons can start to make sense to you. In fact, the older the kids are, the more relevant the message in the game is for them. But from age 6, at least you can comprehend, you can understand. If somebody explains to you, you still have like a knowledge of it. Unlike if you are much younger.
I want to make a case for children between 2 to 5 years old who would operate certain computer devices correctly.
Yes.
Do some texting on parents' phones and so on. Are you saying that these children as well would not be able to handle this game?
Okay, so now they can play it as a game, but the message will not sink in at that age yet. It's just like when we're growing up. The cartoons we watched when we're growing up. If you watch them again now, then you understand what you were watching there. But then it was all fun.
All right, so we will take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be dragging you into the four walls of the school to see how your game, your invention, can be internalized into school curriculum. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Welcome back. Still with me is Lanre Ojo, game developer. Lanre, we are talking about your invention, Vices and
Values and Vices.
Values and Vices. Exciting game when I saw it, and I told you that you're going to put me through it. Then you give me my own package. So how about the four walls of schools? What packages do you have for them? What plans do you have concerning schools?
Okay, so basically, I see this game more as an orientation tool, a social orientation tool. The target audience, which is age 2 to 12, age 6 to 12, thereabouts, are mostly found in schools. So it's only normal or practical that we take it to them, in their schools. That's where they spend most of their time anyways. Kids would always play, so why not give them something that is also educating them while they play?
Do you realize that your game is going to be competing with already available games in schools? We have chess, we have Ludo game, we have different sort of indoor games. Now you are bringing in these values and vices. How would you be able to convince head teachers, school administrators about your game and the relevance?
So the lessons from Values and Vices is completely different from what the others are offering.
How would your lessons help a boy who is struggling with mathematics, English, literature, and all sorts? Okay,
so remember the quote I said earlier about educating mind and not in morals, and educating a menace to society. If you have all the maths, if you know all the sciences, all the STEM, and you don't have the moral foundation, all of that is just going to be a waste. So you might either end up as a hacker, or you end up, as a corrupt individual.
That's another angle to it.
I mean, if I teach you codes, and I don't teach you ethics with it, you might end up using that knowledge, most likely end up using that knowledge for evil as against helping humanity, which is the basis of education in the first place. So what we're trying to do is balancing things. Yes, you have the full understanding of what you're doing, the sciences and arts and all of that, but there has to be like a moral foundation where all of this will sit on. If not, it's just going to be like having the best criminal mind.
Okay, what's the reception like so far?
Okay, so schools love it. The students themselves love it because it's always engaging. And most times, we've done a couple of school tours where we have the big mats, life-size mats that we take out.
Wow.
So they play it, and then we get to ask them, what did you learn, from it? And you'll be surprised. In fact, I was surprised when I saw some of them even taking lessons almost immediately after. You see a kid that's just played it and he's telling his other one, oh, don't litter the ground, that's dirty environment. So it's almost instantaneous results of
Wow.
what the lessons we're trying to imbibe in them. And these are 6 years old.
Let's talk about money aspect of it. You
Okay.
designed this game not for charity purpose, isn't it?
Okay, so basically, that question is, I'll answer it this way. Those that need the game, because it's a game we want to go across all schools. We want every household to have one of it.
That's why I want to know the motivation behind
The
this
motivation behind it wasn't necessarily the financial part. In fact, the model we're looking to adopt is to have partners. Because we know the end users that we intend it for. We want to have a generational impact. That's the motivation behind this game. Let's have a generation, because if you have all the money in the world and there's no society, for you to spend it in, then you really haven't made any
Another
money.
angle to the finance is how affordable is your
So
game?
currently the board game sells for 5,000 naira.
Okay.
But based on review, because based on the nation where we are, we know that yes, Nigerians are not the richest in the world, so we've decided to go for a mass product now. So we're coming up with a cheaper version of it, which is going to be the mass version. That one is going to sell for about 2.5 thereabouts.
Okay.
So we've had to compromise on some of the materials we're using. It's still going to be a fantastic product, but have a low-cost version. The reason why we're doing this is we want to open ourselves up to partners, that will come and say, oh, okay, I want to sponsor values and vices for 1,000 students, for 500 students, for 5,000, 10,000 students. We want to open ourselves up to collaborations from foundations, from local governments, federal government, so that this thing can actually achieve the aim it was developed for. If I say, oh, let's make it high-end, use the best materials, 12,000 naira, it's not only the children of the wealthy that should get moral values, everybody needs it. It's a basis, it's a fundamental need for every human. So which is why we're looking to tell that part of, oh, let's get this thing. The message is what is most rife. I mean, I don't have to have it go on a gold-plated board. As long as the message can be passed, okay, let's get the materials affordable so that more people can afford it, And then, of course, it doesn't mean we're eliminating the standard materials we're using, because for those ones, I mean, if you can afford it, why not?
Okay, talking about standard material, let's talk about another form of material that is going digital with this sort of game. Is it possible?
Oh yes, obviously, definitely possible. Now, going digital will help us kill boundaries, physical boundaries, because I've actually had requests from people. We decided to go with this first because aside just being a game, it's also a form of exercise. These days we're trying to limit the screen exposure to kids. In fact, one of our cards says screen addiction.
Wow.
Don't spend too much time on the screen. So let them also have that feel of, oh, I'm playing with somebody, as against just typing. But definitely we'll have it available as a mobile.
Thank you so much for being on this show. When I saw your game, I said, wow, this is another thing. Now, this game, Values and Vices, reminded me of the certain biscuits where you cut out the back and you play this snake and then it never made sense to me. Mine is just to keep moving on.
First to get
sometimes when I get to where the snake is going to bite, I will look around and skip. So thank you very much for being on the show. But before you go, we'd normally do the grading if I give the assignment. So the grading is A, C, and F. Now, A is excellent, C is fair, and F is terrible. Now I'm going to grade the parents' contribution to children being exposed to gaming activities. How would you grade parents supporting their children in terms of games and academy to balance the two? How would you grade the parents right now? A, C, and F.
Currently, I'll give it a C.
based on parents that you've seen so far?
Based on parents I've seen so far, I'll say I'll give it a. In fact, I might be tempted to give it an A. Unfortunately, we don't have a B.
Okay. How would
So
you grade Nigerian education system that is saying you need to include certain gaming activities with into the Nigerian education
okay,
system? How
so
would you
I'll
grade
give
them?
them a C as well.
Okay.
Yes, because over the years they've done a lot in inculcating games into their curriculum.
All right.
So most of them now have clubs for chess, and unlike back in the days where it was all academics.
Okay.
So now we're beginning to
How do
adopt.
you grade schools now with their gaming activities and how they're able to help children so far?
Schools too, I'll give them an A.
Wow.
Yes, because
When we talk about schools, we're looking at private and would you like to
private
differentiate
and
it?
public, yeah. Because interestingly, we're having an event at with a public school
Okay.
on the 30th of this month. So we'll be engaging them. They actually have a game. They have a games master. They have a game club within the schools in a public school.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you once more for being part of Four Walls on TV 360 Nigeria.
Thank you for
Now,
having me.
go on Facebook, Four Walls on Facebook, and write your opinion. This is an assignment. Do you think that game can help students academically? Do you think games can help students academically? So share your opinion on this. Until I come your way next time, it's Children's Day. We're celebrating children all over the world, and most of the children in Nigeria are celebrating as well. As well, you need to remember that Nigeria currently has the highest population of children out of school. So we are also encouraging you to help educate a child. Every child needs education, and that's how we'll continue to build our society. God bless you. See you next time. Bye.